ensnared.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Everyone is Addicted. Today we have Anna Murby, who is here to share her experience and her knowledge of addiction and recovery and healing with us. So, welcome, Anna, and thank you for being with us. And take it away.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Jasmine. I'm very excited to talk to you. This subject matter of which I'm going to talk about is something that women don't really talk about, and they certainly don't talk about it to podcasts and television shows, and they just don't broadcast it because it's not something you usually hear a woman say. But I was addicted to pornography for 17 years. That was such a rocky time for me in the sense that it was not an everyday addiction. There were periods of time where I could go a month and be fine, and then negative emotion would happen and I'd crash and I'd binge. So it was more like a binge type of
Yeah,
one, and it's bad. That I want to say could be worse. I mean, if you binge drink, that can also be bad. I've heard of a lot of college students who have passed away because they binge drinked. They didn't have a full-on alcoholism for their whole life. They just binged and it can be bad. And I had a season of doing that too. But I guess binge addictions are my thing because that
I'm a
seems to be
I'm a binge addict myself.
yeah.
I will say that I wasn't pornography, but
Hmm.
sex. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, me
Like,
too.
so I will even, and I'll say, yes, it is something women definitely don't talk about a lot, but like I could even say, just so you don't feel alone or uncomfortable, I'll say that there is times where I've slept with so many people that I don't even know how many or what their names are and what they
Mm,
look like
yeah.
and stuff. And it was the same thing. Negative emotion would happen, and I would binge, binge, then be fine. And it would
Yeah.
be a cycle like that. So I just wanted to say that so
Yeah.
that you didn't feel like you were completely alone in your feelings of those kinds of very awkward to talk about scenarios. So that's why I
Yeah.
figured I'd say that right away because I understand that. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of women who probably can relate to that. They feel the shame of, well, pornography is a man's problem, so why do I have that problem? But it's not really a man's problem. If you look at the stats, women are consistently having this problem more. And that's only the ones who are admitting that they have this problem. There's probably more because they don't want to admit. If they're taking a poll, they're not going to write that. They don't want people to know. There's a lot of shame around it for women than men. I mean, if you look at
mhm.
how men act about it, they're like, "Oh, what's wrong with it?" But women, we get it, we understand, and we know that there's something inherently wrong about it, and that's why we feel awful when we have that addiction. And I just felt like a hypocrite because I called myself a Christian my whole life. And here I am doing that and hiding it from everybody. Nobody knew I had this problem except for God, obviously. But yeah, one day I had my third child. I was 8 months pregnant with her, and God decided enough was enough. He used my 4-year-old son to get my attention. I was having another one of those days where it was just a negative emotion and I needed to relieve it. So, what I did is I went to my room. I started scrolling after I had put my son down for his nap. He came back in the room and I snapped at him. I just yelled at him, told him to go back to his room because he couldn't see what was on there, but I
Yeah,
didn't know or anything. It was just like, oh no,
it's
I was
just
caught.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the mechanism that you go to when you get caught doing something you shouldn't. So I felt terrible and I apologized to him when he got up and I asked him why he even got out of bed. So he told me, God told me to go find you. That wrecked me. I was
That
like, okay, okay, I get it now. And I could not sleep at all that night. I woke my husband up crying from the living room. And he asked me what was wrong. So I told him, I said, I have an addiction to pornography. I had never called it that before because I didn't see it that way. Like I said, I could go months on end and not have a problem. And then one day crash really hard and I couldn't stop. So I didn't really see it as an
Well,
addiction, but that's what it was.
even listening to you now, like I didn't use pornography. I used like my imagination because I have I guess you'd call it like a fetish or
Yeah.
whatever. So I would use my mind, and I would say like I a chronic masturbator from like
Mm,
the early ages, like childhood, like I would say from the ages of like 8 years old
mm,
until I would say um I quit doing alcohol and drugs, the medication. I think it takes it away, I guess, because I just
mm.
don't have that like compulsion anymore. But
Wow.
it would be like 10 times a day. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be the same thing with my children where it'd be like if they come in the room, well, mommy, what are you doing? And you'd have to like and I
Yeah.
didn't think about it until like just listening to it. I was like, you know what? I wasn't necessarily using pornography, but I was. It was just in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, right?
Yeah.
So I, I think, like you said, I think it's more like not popular, but more people, like more women do have this kind of thing. Because I mean, just even like myself, and I had another guest that has also had the same kind of things that we've talked about, and it's you just feel ashamed of yourself, and like
Mm-hmm.
you're the first person I ever told this to, and I'm telling this on a podcast, but yeah, so and it was like obsessive. It was
Yeah.
really hard to shake it, and like I didn't understand it, and I thought, well, you know what, it's just natural, I guess. So I don't know. I never really told anybody about it, right? But
Yeah.
I looking back on it now, if I wasn't on the medication that I'm on, I might still be doing it. Like,
Mm.
but you had a divine intervention. I had a husband that had a heart attack from drugs that put me out
Mm.
of it. So I guess we all get pushed in that direction some way, somehow. But
Yeah.
it really does come down to shame because if if like you hadn't have felt that shame for so long, then you probably would have been able to be more open about it earlier, and not
Mm-hmm.
had the build up of it for so long.
Yeah, I always felt guilty afterwards because I knew it was wrong. Like I said, I grew up as a Christian. I knew what was right and what was wrong. And I knew everything I was doing was not the right things. I knew God was watching me and I felt the shame and guilt of that. And I wanted to stop, but I couldn't because it creates this situation where you feel good afterwards. It releases those endorphins and you just feel really good after. And after a while, you train your brain to believe that that's the only way you can heal from it. And then what are you going to do? There's nothing else you can really do at that point. So I had no choice, is what it felt like. I had no choice. That was all I could do to fix it. And then one day, God's like, I hear you. I know what your heart actually wants. You want to be free of this. You're tired of this. I'm going to help. I'm going to have to step in a little more than you probably wanted. And, I look back on it and I'm glad he did that. But my full transformation, my full healing didn't come until after that. Because once I told my husband, I felt so much better. I had already felt lighter just by telling him. So I told my parents, I told people at church, I told my friends, I told everybody I could. Like I just spewed it out that I had this problem because I felt like the more people who knew, the more I would feel like I'm being held accountable, whether I was or not. I just would feel that way. And I just felt better and better. And I also decided to put a lot of different restrictions and parameters on what I did and didn't do. So for that first year and a half, I listened to only Christian music, worship music. I only watched things that were G rating, maybe PG, depending on what it was. I didn't get on my computer after a certain hour. I blocked certain things on my phone. I had apps and everything to keep track of what I was doing. I wouldn't get on my computer if I was alone. I wouldn't get on my computer after a certain hour of the night. I just, I cut everything off pretty much cold turkey. There's certain types of addictions where you can do that. I believe this is probably one of the easiest ones that you
Don't
can
get
do that.
withdrawals because it's not like it's in
Yeah.
your system like
Yeah.
chemicals and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard at first. And what happened to me was I started finding that I was getting different types of addictions. I was more addicted to working out. I was more addicted to eating certain things. So, you got to be careful because you're going to try to fill that void with something. But, I started getting hurt a little bit more while working out, so I wasn't able to do that as often. So eventually, God just got me to a point where it's like I had to confront what my real issues were that were making me feel like I had to go mask it with something.
That's what I think is how you find real recovery is getting to the core reasons for where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I still remember like my mother pulling blankets off of me and like
Mm,
yelling at me for masturbating when I was younger. And I was like, what is the reason why I needed that? And I feel like a lot of it, oh shoot, that's my mom right there. Um, uh, I felt like the reason was mostly because I was small, I was bullied, and I wanted to feel good, and that felt good. So
mm-hmm.
that was the easiest way to feel good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just as I got older, it just got way more out of hand because I didn't have a mother sitting there kind of shaming me, pulling the blanket off and being like, "You're not supposed to do that." Or
Mm-hmm.
I had
Yeah.
my own space, and then also a computer where I could masturbate and I could meet up with men. So it was just a
Yeah.
double-edged sword, right? So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
The cell phone invention was terrible for people who had this
yeah.
addiction.
Oh, ho, ho, yeah. And like you said, it's just so easy because it's also like when you go on a binge, when like, because I was quite a drinker, when you go on like a binge with that, you feel so sick after that it's like it takes a little while to go back to a and go on a binge.
Mhm.
But it was never a normal. It would be a binge. It would be a
Yeah.
quiet period, but the quiet period in my sexual addictions wasn't very short because I didn't
Mhm.
like have the chemical dependence, like the sickness after. I never felt sick after. I always felt better. So
Yeah.
even to get over a hangover, I would use that. So
Mm.
it was I totally understand how you feel and like I think it got switched off. Like I think that because I'm on harm reduction medication, that was God's way of like shutting it off for me and be
Hmm.
like putting me in a place like because I'm like you, I have kids, I'm married, I have a normal life. So why am I still doing this? And it pushed me into recovery of like my other substance abuse, but it pushed me into that recovery as well.
Hmm.
And it's not something that I feel like I have to lean on to be able to get through things or get that quick hit of like feeling better or dopamine or
Yeah.
endorphins or whatever you want to call it, right? And it's so easy to get that quick hit and then you're good. And
Yeah.
like even friends of mine, women will talk like that, when you sit around when you have but like some girlfriends around and you'll talk about that kind of stuff. And it's true. And everybody will say the same thing. Oh, it's just a quick couple of minutes, quick hit, good. We're go down and you're good with the kids when you're stressed out. And it's like
Yeah.
that actually isn't the best thing. You can like
Yeah.
realistically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to find healthy avenues when you're coming off an addiction. You got to find healthy ways to handle the triggers that you get. And it was helpful for me to figure out what my triggers were, which was pretty much anger and frustration was it. And, I tried different things to help and nothing really helped. But what I did is I stayed focused on God. I talked through my problems instead of hiding them inside, which is what I used to do. Now I'm more of an open book, and if I need to talk to somebody, I will find someone to talk through because I know if I hold on to it, it's just going to create a situation for me in the future. So I'm more open and honest with my husband. I'm more open and honest with my children. If mommy needs a break, I'll say, Mommy needs a timeout. You guys got to leave me alone. I just need a moment. So I'm very more aware of what got me into that situation. So I know how to stop it. But I wasn't completely freed from my addiction all the way to where the chains were broken from it until a year and a half later. Because during that year, I wanted to be free. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to be free is because I had started getting involved with a ministry called Tripx Church, and they are a faith-based ministry online that helps men and women who are struggling with pornography. They'll help couples if they're struggling together with it, and they just give them tools, videos, and Bible lessons, things like that to help them get out of their addiction. And they had, I don't know if they still do it, but at the time they had ministry opportunities where they would go into pornography conventions with a booth and they would share the gospel through a shirt that says Jesus loves porn stars. And they would also give them the gospel of, I think it was John.
I'm sure that people received that well.
Surprisingly, yes, like it it was a good thing because they always made the shirts right in front of people. So they gave them the option of what color they
Yeah,
wanted and the style. And yeah, people liked it, free things. Some people thought it was funny or, like, oh, that's clever.
but it's
But
true though.
yeah,
It's
it
some
is.
people
Yeah.
have
And
that
people don't
weird
think that.
negative.
Yeah.
Some people just have that weird negative connotation of adding religion to something. Do you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I was wondering if
Yeah.
there's like those people that protest outside of the hospitals. They get a lot of flack, right? So
Hmm.
I mean, you guys weren't they aren't protesting. They're
No, they were just
yeah,
there to share the love of Jesus, which is what he would have done too.
yeah, exactly.
And yeah,
It makes a
so
lot of
I
sense
thought it was
realistically.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do
and I thought
too.
it was cool and I wanted to be a part of it. So you had to be at least a year and a half sober. So that was one of the main drivers of why I wanted to be sober. Other than the fact that I just wanted to be, I was done with it at that point. But that was one of the main goals I had. So I finally had raised enough money to go on the trip and I had done everything that was required of me. And I went to the one in New Jersey and I was nervous because up until that point, I had not seen anything higher than a PG rating. So
Oh yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen to me once I saw anything like that. So, of course, when you go in, it's a pornography convention. So, of course, you're going to see all the stuff that's going on. There's people on cameras doing things. There's people walking around. They've got no clothes on. It's all there in your
It's a
face.
lot. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
And I did not have the reaction I thought I would. I just started crying. My heart broke. I looked around and I saw sadness. I saw confusion. I saw hurt. I saw people wanting to be loved. And I immediately felt the weight of how God feels for everybody in there. And I wanted to jump on a table and start sharing the good news of Jesus Christ, but I was too
I
shy to do
feel
that and
that
too in
too.
awe. I just like, I broke and the chains of my addiction broke at that point. Like nothing I saw after that point did anything to me except for show me the love of Jesus. Like ever since then, I have no desire to look at it. If I get angry or frustrated, that is not where my brain goes. If I'm in the middle of doing something that has absolute nothing to do with anything and an image from my past pops up, I don't feel like I'm a slave to it. I don't have to back away from my computer and take a moment anymore. I can just continue with what I'm doing. I don't feel like I have to entertain those thoughts anymore. I just feel more free. Like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it other than God freed
I
me from pornography at a porn
well,
convention.
I feel like that would be the place though, because like that's like the ultimate like of pornography is a convention,
Hmm.
right? So like anything that you're ever going to see on the computer is right in your face, like,
Yeah.
and like you also have that feeling of knowing that a lot of the women might feel the same way you do, and you just want to like show them how you feeling better, and you just want to be
Mm-hmm.
like, you can feel better, you can feel better. I was like, that's probably what broke the chains right there, just knowing that you knew that you could feel better and knowing that you
Yeah.
could help other people feel better, even by just giving them a t-shirt, puts a seed in their head, you know.
I
And
did
that's all it
actually
is.
get to talk to a woman. She didn't have a top on, and we talked for a while. I shared the gospel with her. She started crying. She let me pray for her. I was pumped. And you know what is funny? I'm thinking about it now. I tell this story all the time because I love it, and it's how I was set free. And every single time I tell it and I talk about the convention, I don't see any of the images. I'll say,
Head.
oh, there were people walking by. Yeah, like in my head, I don't see any of the content that I actually saw. Like I actually
Yeah.
saw people walking around butt naked, nothing there. But when I retell all this, I don't actually see the image. It's kind
Hmm.
of almost blurry, I guess. Not like pixelated blurry, but just like it's
You
blocked
see
from my memory. It's not there. It's
proper,
fuzzy.
you see the positive aspect. You do block.
Yes,
I
exactly.
can see what you mean because my husband sometimes for extra money will do deliveries, and he did it
Mm-hmm.
like a delivery to a pornography shoot. He didn't know that,
Mm.
but the girl opened
Uh-oh.
the door and she was covered in straps, but mostly naked, and there was people
Mm.
doing sexual acts in the background. And he said basically he just went and put it down and like turned around and left. He said it seemed all very respectful towards the women. Otherwise, he's a big thing for like that. If they're not respecting a woman, he just walks into something like that, he's gonna say something.
Yeah.
He's just like that. But he said it all seemed very respectful, but he said it was the same kind of thing where it was like pixelated. Like all he
Yeah.
focused on was that it was a safe space for the women in the room. And that's all he was focused on. And he was like, as soon as he determined it was a safe space, he was like, here's your pizza, good night. You know?
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
get what you're saying with the it's just see what positive, and that's how you know that you're healing and that you're also helping, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because if you were still kind of struggling, you would still see some of it and maybe be triggered by it, you know, but instead you see that
Yeah.
positive aspect of that woman that probably was sent to you by God because you both needed each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very important moment in my life, and it set off a chain of events. At that point, I wanted to continue sharing my story. I didn't know how to do it. And God had kind of told me it wasn't really the time. Because at that point, I needed to focus more on my family, which is something I had been neglecting my whole marriage life, pretty much. I have been married 3 times. This is currently my third marriage, so I have not been doing life the best I should have. So needed to work on that. I needed to work on my relationship with God. Now that I had a more mentally clear head, I could have a healthy relationship with my husband. Whereas before, all that stuff used to, be in the back of your mind. How are you supposed to have an intimate relationship with the person you're married to if you're constantly being bombarded with past people or things that you've done in your past, watched in your past? It was just so hard, but I have a clear head now, and praise God for that because that was such a frustrating time. You could not get the images out of my head. It was no matter what I was doing, there was just something there that would trigger it. And now, if I watch anything, I usually don't watch anything higher than PG-13 anyways, but if I do and I do watch something higher than that, I try to watch it on VidAngel. If that doesn't happen, then what I will do is if something does happen to come up, I just kind of feel like a person who just awkwardly walked into someone's bedroom while they're in the middle of having intimate time. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to come in. I'll excuse myself. And I just walk out. Like, that's just the feeling I have now. Even watching PG-13 movies with all the stuff they put in, it just feels awkward. It's like, why would I want to see that? I don't want to see people getting intimate anymore. It's like that's your private stuff. Keep it private. I don't need to see it. Whereas before, that's kind of how I got started into my pornography journey in the first place, was I started off easy, squiggly lines on my TV, and I could see a little bit of the Playboy channel. And then it escalated to, watching certain movies where I knew there was stuff in there. And, I'm just watching a movie. It's not a thing, it's not porn, so it's
Right.
okay. And
I
yeah, you start yourself off
I
easy.
I don't know if they like what area you were like from, but I don't know if you had like Kaza and those like those down like you could download videos from like wherever. And
Maybe.
it was called one was called Kaza. There was another way more popular one. I just can't think of it right now. And the way that I got started into it was me and my friends, if my mom wasn't around, you could download these videos, but like obviously because computers back then, they'd be like 30-second clips.
Mm-hmm.
And we being, I don't know, 14 and thinking innocently we would look up these things and download little clips. So like you said, seeing just a little bit, right? And we would be like, oh, lesbian porn, right? And we'd see this little clip and that's how it all started. I like for me too was like very um that's where I realized I had like a kind of a fetish issue where like porn didn't work or like but I certain things that I like that were like different from other people and it was very strange like I'll honestly be honest it was that I've always been very tiny, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
some reason being overweight really excited me, right?
Mm.
So I would always picture myself being really overweight and that or watch pornography of somebody who was really overweight. And so or a show like those television shows they have about that kind of stuff, right? So it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
regular pornography, but it was that's what would get my interest. And I only ever told one person that and they were somebody that I was in love with and they broke my heart. So that was something that really just after like opening up so much to somebody and having them kind of smash you down. I never
Mm-hmm.
told anybody about that afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But I think the main reason why it went away was because, like I said, I'm on harm reduction medication. It made me gain almost 100 pounds
Mm.
from the medication. So then
Wow.
I actually got to experience what it was like to be overweight, which I
Yeah.
think killed that fetish, which killed that whole string of all that other stuff that came with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But that yeah, that's just why I would say I wasn't addicted to porn because I had that weird being overweight fetish and I like even when I was a kid I would like stick balloons under my shirt so that I would be like bigger, right?
Yeah.
And my mom would catch me like, what are you doing? Right? And
Yeah.
like it was really shameful for me to like admit that. And that's why when I had admitted it to the person that I had admitted it to, because I was going to a 12-step program at the time and him and I were seeing each other. Um, he had opened up and admitted to me that he had been molested. So I was like,
Mm.
well, I'm going to open up and tell you my secret, right? And I told him that. And then I never told anybody else until now, pretty much.
Mm.
But it's all because I still, I don't know, I don't necessarily feel shame for it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just, it's a weird thing, right? So it's like, or it's not weird, I guess. It's out of the norm. So it's
Yeah.
hard to like explain to people, but like I said, once I gained all this weight from the medication, I think I learned what it was like to actually be what I had fantasized about for 20 years,
Hmm.
and then it kind of helped resolve that. Plus, I also, with the sex addiction part, which is like I would say it's separate. My fetish addiction and my sex addiction were two separate things. The sex addiction was more about after that person smashed my heart, I just felt like that's all men wanted from me was
Mm.
sex. So that's I just gave it to them. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted to be
Yeah.
close to somebody, right? I
Yeah.
just wanted to feel like somebody felt that I was attractive or felt that I was worth spending time with and stuff like that. So that's why I did that, right? And
Yeah.
that's my trigger right there. If somebody like that, my husband, he that's where that kind of went away. Like before, when I have been married 3 times, but I've engaged 3 times, and
Hmm.
every time I'd always have a backup guy, right? And my
Mm.
husband is the first one I've never had a backup person that I'm secretly talking to on the side because I can't be alone, right? Like it's
Yeah.
that addiction too, right? And
Hmm.
it's just that quick little fix of chat, 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 and then oh yeah, you're so awesome, blah blah blah. Even though they don't even mean it, they don't even care. They just want to see my tits, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and like you, I was raised in a Lutheran church. My great grandfather was the pastor of, so my
Hmm.
family's relatively religious, right? So doing these things also brought the shame, like you said, right? And then I'd feel like going to church, like I was being a fraud, and
Yeah.
that would cause me to then binge on like drinking to numb that shame, right? So like I was
Yeah.
just a mess of a lot of addictions, I guess. I basically should have called the show Addicted to Everything because my gosh, if I look back on it, right? But I honestly believe that God saved me by had me giving me children, right? Because
Hmm.
once I had my children, especially my first one, I started to change a lot. And then after losing my father, I started to change even more because like I already know God's watching me, so is my dad, and
Yeah.
I'm very, very close with him, and don't want to have him I don't want to, let down two people. Not people,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, two entities that are
Yeah.
watching me and wanting me to only be the best version of myself. And I know I'm not being the best version of myself. And I think that's
Mm.
what gets us. Like, because
Yeah.
I think that was like kind of probably how you felt too, was like, I'm not being the best version of myself. And I
Yeah.
know that's the problem, right? And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like you felt like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's very,
Yeah,
it's,
I felt very hypocritical. I'd be angry if I drove by a strip club and I'd be like, "Oh, look at those girls," and judging them all the time. But then if I have a bad day, I'd go home and I'd look at pornography, which is about the same thing. At some point, I don't remember if it was during my journey to recovery or if it was while I was still looking at it. I heard, I think it was a sermon, and the pastor had mentioned that that is someone's daughter that you watch when you're looking at pornography. That is someone's son. Like it just brought it into a different light that I probably in the back of my head already knew because obviously, duh, they're human being. They're someone's child. But it put it in a perspective I had never seen it before and could not unthink it whenever I did look at that. So whenever I did look at that, I'd feel that extra guilt of this is someone's child. This is a real person. This is not just a computer generated whatever. This is a
yeah,
real person. And it puts it into a perspective where you realize that these aren't just things on a screen. These are actual people somewhere in the world. And
and they have
That
feelings
that
too. Like,
helped. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times they're probably not there because they want to be there. Unfortunately, they could be trafficked into it. And you wouldn't know. How are you going to know
well, that's
unless
why
you
I said
actually
with my
ask them?
husband, where he was like, I wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
like the women were being treated right. Like he said that it was
Mm-hmm.
actually very eye-opening to the fact of how nice like they were treating the women actually.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And it's not what he would have expected in that situation, right? And
Yeah.
I do know women that I've talked to over my podcast that have been trafficked, and it wouldn't have been like that, right?
Yeah.
And how would you, like you said, how would you know, right? You don't,
Yeah.
we don't really know the scenario, and that makes me think about it too. Like I pretty much watch PG stuff. I'm kind of the same way, but it's more of for my sobriety. Watching, I liked TV a lot when I was younger, so
Me
watching
too.
shows that I liked when I was younger really helps me bring back the happiness feeling that I had then instead of using a substance or um doing something that I know I don't want to do. So I'll
Hmm.
watch like my husband gets so annoyed because I'll watch Roseanne over and over and over and over when I'm stressed out, and he knows. My son even had a little dance to the theme song of oh, because that's what I was getting sober, and I would watch Roseanne over and over and over.
Yeah.
But I found it like I find it soothing in a way because it's more like the PG-13 stuff is more relatable to my life, I guess. So for
Hmm.
me, it helps me. Like I even with movies, like I watched How to Train Your Dragon, the new one, like 4 or 5 times already.
Hmm.
Because
It's funny
yeah,
for me. I can't watch anything anymore. Like I just don't enjoy watching TV anymore. I used to be able to binge. Like I could sit and watch a whole show in a day, no problem. No problem. I could do that all day. If my kids just wanted to be couch potatoes all day, I could do that. Like that was my jam. The last maybe 3 years, I haven't felt that way. And I don't know if it's one just because I have restless leg syndrome and trying to sit still is
oh yeah.
impossible. It's the worst. But I think it's mostly, and I think about it because I just recently, well, I used to watch a lot of different 80s comedies and everything and movies and TV shows from the 90s. And I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to introduce my kids to the old dinosaurs
Yeah,
show
I
that
did
used to be
that
on in the
too.
90s. And I was like surprised at how many times they use certain language that I'm like, I tell my kids not to use. And innuendos they had. And I'm like, how did I not know this
I
before?
know.
And, I've detoxed off of so much stuff that now when I watch something from my past, I see that stuff and I'm like, oh, I watched this. This was my favorite movie. What is my problem? Like, I'm so
Uh-huh.
surprised and I can't enjoy it anymore because I'm not the same person I was. And I think that's the main reason why I don't watch a lot of stuff anymore. Because my husband's like, well, why don't you want to watch a movie? And I'm like, I'm afraid if I watch something from that I used to like, I'm not going to have the fond memories of it anymore that I did
Yeah.
before because my eyes are open to things now. He's like, "Yeah, I get that." So I don't watch a lot of things. There's certain things I can still watch. There's new things I've found that I can watch, but it's just so crazy when you are so desensitized to things, you don't notice a lot. And then when you're out of that for a while and you go back into it, it's so crazy. Like Psych. There's a perfect example. I loved the show Psych. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like my favorite. That was my family's favorite. We watched it all the time. And I don't know if it's just because it's on Amazon Prime now, or I think it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know if that's because they released the whole version or if the TV version had the information in it, but several episodes had the F word in it, and I never knew that
I never
until
knew
I
that.
watched it again. And then I watched it again. I was like, wait, did they just say what I think they did? I mean, it wasn't like, riddled throughout every episode or whatever, but they had a lot more language in it than I remembered. And I don't know if it's just because it was on a specific channel where they didn't do that or or what, but I was just like,
I
wow.
think it was in there and we didn't notice because
Yeah.
I tried to introduce my daughter to the Spice Girls because I love
Mm.
the Spice
Yeah,
Girls.
I liked them
But
too.
then going back and listening to the words of their
Hmm.
music, I'm like, okay, maybe no, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it just like I didn't realize it because I was a kid what a lot of the words meant,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
Spice Up Your Life is the only one I'll let my daughter listen to because it's not really overly like sexualized or anything, and
Yeah.
they have the little dance, so we'll do that. But the other ones, there's so many where some of the things they say, you're like, what? And why didn't my parents say,
Yeah.
especially being like religious people, being like, why are you listening to that? But my parents were like, oh yeah, the Spice Girls bought me the Barbies,
Mm.
let me
Yeah.
have like the posters and the movie, and even the movie is kind of
Yeah.
sexualized and you don't realize it until you're older. Like
Yeah.
I think back when we were younger, they did a lot more innuendos in shows
Hmm.
than they
Yeah.
do now. And I think it kind of because before we didn't have people on the internet pointing things out, um,
Yeah.
none of us really noticed it. And I think that is a lot of what leads to having these kinds of addictions because
Yeah.
it was kind of subliminally put in our heads in these shows where we think it's just, oh, it's just fine. Like even like Clueless, like think
Yeah.
about how they
Yeah,
dressed
that movie.
and
Yeah.
everything else, right? And even
Yeah.
always about boys and always about looking good and all
Yep.
like just so much more than what I would have thought, like
Yeah.
when I was that little. It's crazy, but that's like the one good thing about um this era is that we have technology where we can speak out about things if you see it
Yeah.
in a show, and then other parents can be like,
Aware of
oh,
it.
okay,
Yeah.
don't watch that. Don't let your kid watch that. Like my
Yeah.
friend sent me something yesterday about Minecraft, the game, right? And
Hmm.
it was something relatively scary. It was um I forget exactly what it was. It was like a level that you could go to, and it was
Mm.
people actually having sex acts. And
Hmm.
I was like, right? Like I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. And she's like, well, that's why I sent it to you because she's like, it was on a TikTok, and she's like, she's like, then I took my son's tablet and I went through his whole Minecraft, just make sure that he wasn't on it because he's a boy. But you know what? My daughter's a girl, and that doesn't make it any different. And I should
Yeah.
realistically, her tablet just broke, so I can't, but I do have the SD card. I should realistically go through and see what she was looking at because it was eye opening to me that that is on there. And my mom even caught her and her friend. My mom lives in a granny suite of a family friend, and the oldest there is 10. So my
Hmm.
she's a little bit older. And my mom heard them talking. And so she walks over and they're talking to somebody on Minecraft, and this person's asking them, like, how old are you? And where are you
Mm.
from? And my mom, like, automatically, like, flipped, right?
No.
And then
Yeah.
called us, and we had to have a talk with her about that yesterday. So it's kind of
Yeah.
ironic that we're talking about this today because yesterday all this stuff came up, and in my life, like, about it was kind of like bringing up to me, this is where I started, and I don't want my daughter to start there now.
Yeah.
And I want her to stay as innocent as she can for as long as she can because I know how easy it is to get sucked into these things, and I know how young I started with this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I am like, oh my gosh, like thank God her tablet broke. That's
Yep.
so bad to
Yeah.
say.
No, I get that because I think it was 3 years ago, my son had a friend at school who told him about a couple special videos on YouTube. And my son looked at them, and of course, it was anime type of. pornography on YouTube that was apparently able to be on there. And my son, I ended up catching him because, well, I didn't catch him. I found his tablet in his room after hours the next morning. And yeah, I just, at that point, I had to have a conversation with him and tell him that I had an addiction to pornography. This is not okay. So we put extra restrictions on what he can and cannot do. I mean, he's 13 now, so he probably unfortunately hears a lot of things and stuff,
Oh, school
but
is
they
going.
don't, yeah, yeah, they don't, my kids don't have access to being on the internet. They don't have social media except for my oldest, who's 18. My son's always saying, "Oh, I need a phone or I want a phone." I was like, "No, you don't. You're 13. You don't have anyone to talk to and you have no need to be on social media." And yeah, like we don't let them go online and talk to anybody when they play their online games like
We
they play
didn't know
Fortnite and yeah, like I
we didn't
block
know that you could
everything.
talk to people on Minecraft. So we thought that
Yeah.
we didn't know that you could do that, right? So
Mm.
that
I
was
think if it's
why we
on
let
the
them play.
internet, like I know there's a specific way you can do that, like if you have friends, because my kids can't do that. I always have them if they're going to be on the tablets, they're in airplane mode. If you want it off airplane mode, you have to talk to me and I have to know why. And I need to be within earshot. So they never have headphones on either.
Same in
It's just
my
things you just have to eventually figure out what
because
works
we
for, because
didn't
it's not going to be the same for everybody. Yeah.
we didn't know, and my husband's very technologically intelligent, so he can see every little thing that they do on their tablets.
Mm, mm-hmm.
But when she's with somebody else, because it was
Mm,
the other girl's tablet, we
yeah.
can't control that. And I wasn't thinking about that. And I was never told that you could talk to people on like my
Yeah.
daughter's like, no, it
Her
was an
friend probably
avatar.
has like the online thing where
Yeah,
you
because
can
her
do that.
dad
Yeah.
works a lot, so I don't think that he's my old friend of mine, right? So I know
Mm-hmm.
that he he works a lot because he's a single dad, so he doesn't always pick up
Yeah.
on things, and that's where my mom luckily comes in living there, right? Because
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
catches them doing stuff. But like that's the thing I think that we have to be aware of too as parents is that the friends have like
Mm-hmm.
we can control things, but if they're with a friend, we
Yeah.
can't always control what the friend's parents are letting them do. And so
Yeah,
that's scary
exactly.
too. And
Yeah.
and that's like why I think it's so important to have these conversations that we just had because you know what? Our children will learn from that. Like, I don't really shield my children too much from the
Yeah.
fact that I have had addiction problems because I don't
Yeah.
want them to follow the generational pattern that has come through our family and
Yeah.
ravaged it, you know? So
Yeah.
I try to very much at age level let them understand. They can also hear me talk and stuff, right? But at the same time, like obviously keep it at an age appropriate level because I don't
Yeah.
want them to follow in my footsteps. It's a big fear of mine. And I just know how easily like I just become addicted to things super easily, so I have to be very accountable all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean all the time because like I said I've had a lot of addictions. I've never like like venously used or anything like that, but I like I said I picked up on like a lot of the other ones, like ones
Mm-hmm.
that wouldn't like you wouldn't even think of, you know what I mean? Like with like masturbating or that or like having fetishes like that and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I didn't understand it for so long, right? So it was just always a shameful kept secret until I obviously ended up hitting rock bottom and having to go to a methadone clinic to get better from being addicted to Percocets. And
Mm.
that was when I really had to start taking accountability because you have to go and you have to pee in a cup and you have to be sober and then they give you your harm reduction medication in which
Yeah.
the harm reduction medication makes you gain weight, which some I swear that was God being like you're going to learn so that you stop doing this because you have children that are watching you. Like,
Mm,
and
yeah,
I mean, we've seen our daughter sometimes, while we're watching TV, and that's what really clicked it into me. I was like, ooh, that's coming from me. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So then we
yeah,
had to talk to her about that. But she like she goes to church too, all like she loves church. And so it's I don't want her to feel ashamed of sexuality per se, but I want her to understand
yeah.
the parameters of it and the reality of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. You have to be calm about it. When I found what my son was looking at, I was not calm about it because I was stressed out and I yelled and I cried and he cried and you definitely can't act like that because then it gives them a whole new level of shame and then they feel, am I able to come to my parents and tell them this or that? So I've mellowed out a lot with that, and I've had to have some awkward conversations with my children that I never thought I'd ever have
Yep.
because I didn't have those conversations with my parents. It was more of the, you're not supposed to do that because you're not supposed to do that. Never really explained why. Just, it's bad. Don't do that. Terrible. Like, I just never felt comfortable that I could talk to my parents
I
about
was
this.
the same way. I didn't even tell my mom when I got my period because I
Mm,
just didn't know how to talk to her about anything like that. Basically, she handed me a book when I was like 12 about how females progress to adulthood, and that was my sexual training from my
mm,
mom. Because I don't think she knew how to talk about it either, right? Like
yeah.
she grew up in a church with her mother, right, being a pastor's daughter. They were there all the time, and so for her, I think she didn't know what to say. Like she'd always be like, if anything, even if something bad happened, she'd be like, well, maybe it's God trying to teach you a lesson or something, right? So it was
Mm,
never
mm-hmm.
really actually having an emotional conversation about what I'm feeling. It was more like, well, maybe God's just trying to teach you a lesson because you were needing to learn the lesson or something like that. Even I
Yeah.
got beat up in high school, and my mom even said that. Oh, maybe that's God showing you something. Like, I don't know.
Mm,
I think she has a hard time having those tough conversations
yeah.
from her own childhood of my grandmother definitely is not somebody that you can talk to about that kind of stuff either, right? So
Yeah.
it's just what you learn. But I've been lucky enough to meet people like you and like so many other people along my journey. That's the only blessing of having addictions is meeting people like you and like everybody I've met has taught me something I hadn't learned or thought of before, which I think makes me a better parent because I can take what I learned from people that I maybe didn't know or hadn't learned from my own past, like
Mm-hmm.
my
Yeah.
dad was quite enabling when it came to drinking, so there was never really any limits there. My mom and him split up when I was just became drinking age, so she
Mm,
moved out, so I didn't see her as much. So I didn't have, she was very like kept things controlled, right, for me and kept me on like the straight and narrow. And then
yeah.
when she was gone, it was kind of like, wow, like whole world of freedom. And I didn't know how to
Yeah.
navigate it. And so I just jumped right in. And that's why I say I learned so much, even from talking to you. It like makes me like, I realize how bad I really was when it
Mm,
came to the fetish masturbation. Like it was really bad. Like I would say like 10 times a day. And I just couldn't, like you said, it'd be like a binge. It'd go like sometimes I wouldn't do it at all. And then other days it was like, then stop
yeah.
it, right? And it's something I feel like this was definitely one of the harder conversations I've ever had with somebody,
Mm,
but I think it's needed because if we had more of these conversations, it wouldn't be hard.
yeah. Exactly. You're absolutely right.
before I let you go, do you have any thing that you want to say or talk about before I let you go?
I, w for me, and I know it's not going to be for everybody, I learned some Bible verses that really helped keep my mind centered on healthier things. And recently, I created a PDF file for that, a free one that's on my website. And I have my podcast, Honest Christian Conversations. Sometimes this subject matter will come up on there. It depends on my guest that I have.
Oh, okay, so
And
what then, sorry to stop you. What's your website and what platforms are your podcast on so people can find you?
it's www.honestchristianconversations.com. That's my website. You can go on there if you have prayer requests, if you want to contact me, if you're a female and you want to talk to me about this subject matter. I don't mind being a mentor, being there to talk to you, to pray for you, whatever you need. That's where you'll find all my episodes, any freebies that I have. That PDF I just mentioned would be there as well. And my podcast is everywhere, wherever you
Okay, so
listen. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's what
wherever you
okay.
listen.
That's perfect. I just wanted to make sure in case
Yeah.
anybody did want to connect. And I'll yeah, so anything else you want to say before I let you go? I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to make
No, that's
sure
fine. That was
everybody could
pretty
find
much it.
you.
Yeah. Just if there's any women out there who feel like they don't have anyone to talk to about this, I'm here to talk.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and being so brave and honest because
Hmm.
I know how hard it is and um I appreciate it so much because I think that just other women hearing this will maybe free them a little bit from the shame that they hold within. And
Yeah.
maybe they might be able to take a step forward and find a way to help themselves, and maybe they'll like the way that we talked about, or maybe they'll find a different way, but maybe it'll make them realize, you don't have to live in the shame. You can
Yeah.
recover from it, right? So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
You have a great day. I appreciate this is like one of the best conversations I've had because it's one of the most honest, raw conversations I've ever had with somebody, and I appreciate it because, like I said, I think these are the conversations that shouldn't have to be like this. And if we can break down those walls, then we can get somewhere with that, especially with women, right? So,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
completely agree with you. Yeah.
Well, you have a great day, and yeah, I may be in contact again. So thank
All
you.
right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.